Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Policy and Curriculum Committee. It's May 23rd, and we're going to, maybe we could just go around briefly and introduce everyone. My name's Aura Russell-Better. I am District 4 school board member and chairing the committee, and great, we've got a couple more board members joining. Would members of the committee mind just introducing themselves, and then staff, and then we can just introduce the other board members joining. Do you want to go, Mickey?
Yes, thank you, Aura. Hi, everyone. I'm Mickey Bondo, District 1 rep and member of the Curriculum and Policy Committee. Thank you.
I'm Julie Opperman. I'm District 3 rep and member of the committee.
Nylat Biliu, at-large rep and committee person. I don't know what the term is, but.
So did we miss anybody? Oh, actually.
Emily looks like she's an attendee, probably waiting for promoting. There we go.
So then maybe other board members, would you mind just introing quick, and then we can intro staff?
Hi, I'm Sarah Bryden, District 5, not a member of the committee.
Sarah Lentz, she, hers, chair of the board, at-large member.
Emily Figdor, District 2, not a member of the committee, and she, her, hers.
You want to just intro? Of course, we have our two superintendents here, Erin Townsend and Malia Nally. Would other staff just mind quick intro?
Hi, I'm Pamela Otunu, Director of Secondary Academic Access and Outcomes.
Hi, I'm Megs Rooks. I'm the librarian at Talbot Elementary, and I'm the District Library Coordinator.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Before we jump into the agenda, do we have to do minutes today, superintendents? I didn't see that on there, so we're all set. It's just been a little while since we met, so I wanted to make sure. Okay, great. So we have a few items on the agenda, so I think superintendents and staff are kind of co-leading on these. So do you want to just tee us up a little bit, Erin, and then we'll jump in?
Yep. So our first agenda item is, we wanted to do some review and, strengthening clarification of our policy BEDH, the public participation at board meetings. So ensuring we have, a clear policy kind of on the books to manage for both, protection of communities' First Amendment rights, certainly, but also to kind of ensure that we are creating an environment in the context of board meetings, right, that is free from, hate speech, other issues, right, as we've seen kind of emerge in other communities and, even within our own community at council meetings and so forth. So, we consulted with Drummond. So what you see kind of on this agenda packet is both, the existing policy plus a redlined version of proposed changes, and then kind of the clean version that's in there is what kind of the new version of the policy would look like. So, so what we're hoping to do, just to ensure we kind of have these protections in place, is kind of review these, get to a place of at least enough comfort here. There may be some proposed revisions to be able to move it, through kind of board adoption process in our June and our two meetings in June. Even though we may continue to refine a little bit as we work through that process, but just so that we are, tracking towards having some of this, clarity of guidance and expectation, both to be able to communicate to the public, but also for, obviously our current board chair, but any successive board chairs in managing kind of our board meetings to ensure, like I said, that we're appropriately balancing the public's right to engage and participate in those First Amendment rights, but also ensuring we're protecting all staff and community from being exposed to inappropriate conduct, hate speech, etc. So that's the context for this and kind of what we hope to accomplish. So, I can step through a little bit of some of the proposed changes. in some of the rationale. I got a little bit of additional feedback from our counsel at Drummond, would some around some of the rationale for some of the changes. So maybe if it's helpful, I can just step through that briefly, and then we can open up for questions or discussion around some of the proposed changes. Does that sound good? Any clarifying questions before we jump into it? Or Sarah, Sarah L., anything you want to say? Because I know this was, kind of in tandem, our ask to Drummond to kind of bring forward some proposal for us how we might strengthen this. But good. Okay, great. So just the first, the first agenda or proposed change at the end of the first paragraph. So it says at special, emergency, or workshop meetings, public comments may be limited or may not be permitted at all. So, just the flag there that Melissa said is we do have some discretion about whether, we enable public comment there. So this was kind of teeing it up for us to kind of manage or at least have the flexibility. Doesn't mean, it's a may not, right? So it offers us some flexibility at a particular meeting to kind of limit that. So this was helping to just provide a little bit more leeway as we construct agendas about whether, for a given meeting with a given topic, it would be appropriate to entertain public comment. So that's just kind of a little bit of the rationale of some of that first proposed change at the end of the first paragraph. Let's see, where's the comment here? Here in the second paragraph where it says providing a public comment, in the 3 minutes, I think, this isn't spelled out in the current policy, but, certainly that's been our practice. So, her offering was, whether that would be helpful for us to codify it in this way in terms of policy, in terms of management. So, that's a kind of decision point for us. Then item number
on that one, the 30-minute, that hasn't been normal. The 30-minute public comment period. The first
is that in that one or is that subsequent? Yeah, the 30 minutes. No, that has not, certainly Emily, I know you can speak to this because previously we had held public comment at the end of the meetings and trying to remember, it didn't invoke a policy change, but, in service of increasing public comment, we moved it to the beginning of the meetings, but we have not had a practice of time bounding the period of public comment. So in terms of the 30 minutes and then it getting moved. So. Sorry, I'm trying to track her additional comments. So in item 3, where that change prior to board action, members of the public will limit their comments to the agenda item. So her comment was, public comment in addition to the one session on the agenda is not required by law. So, we have, the current policy adding additional public comment on policy or expenditure of funds. So that's nominally our business items. Traditionally, what's our business items, right? So, we don't generally entertain public comment on board policy, or board focus on educational issues or in workshop contexts and certainly in personnel. So generally that's been our practice, but that's technically not required. So, that's optional for us of whether we would want to remove public comment from those periods. That's kind of an offering for consideration. But here the language is kind of driven towards, what our practice has been, which is when it's kind of constrained within the agenda, it's, expected to be relative to that specific point. So number 4. So kind of the procedures set forth here are a little bit, this change all of number 4 and then the sub bullets. For a second time. Oh no, that's what was deleted. this I think was just intended to kind of bring a little bit more clarity, in terms of organization and presentation, in terms of what's there versus, kind of being the dense paragraph as it was. And then the last comment in terms of the deletion of the final paragraph, the except in emergency, her rationale is recommended deleting because it implies the board's going to take action on matters raised in public comment, which is not necessarily true. So, in terms of the language kind of suggesting that we may, and, as for a point of clarity, as we kind of hear public comment, her recommendation was deleting that last paragraph. So that's a little bit of context of some of the, some of the proposed changes. So let me kind of pause.
So can I just ask a process question, and then happy to have members, comment or ask questions. So Erin, were you hoping for us to go through some of those sections to give some feedback? Because I know I did some notes, and I'm guessing that others maybe read and had some. Yeah. Okay. So maybe I wonder if
I'll say yes, recognizing we have a full agenda, and then you guys have a meeting, sharply at 7.
Yeah,
so.
maybe we could make a time around it. But I just wondered if anybody had kind of general points or questions, and then if you maybe sharing the screen and just kind of going through a couple of sections might be helpful. But if we tried to keep it to a time limit, understanding we have other important things on the agenda. So does that sound reasonable? Sarah, did you have a specific thing you wanted to go over, or more of a general? Okay. I feel like if we tried to, I don't know, what do you think about time here? Do a 10, 15 minutes of some feedback. Does that sound reasonable? Mm-hmm. And then will you just remind me the process for this then, Erin, as far as coming back and then getting to
there may be change, modifications to this draft, right? To the next level, we would, have a first read and workshop. So there'd be the chance for further dialogue with the full community, and additional changes could be, discussed and recommended there that then we would bring back for the second read and final vote, in which further amendments could happen, potentially.
Okay. Did you have was there a time frame of wanting to get this through?
I think what we had talked about with Sarah, just given what we'd seen play out in some recent meetings, we felt some urgency to kind of get updated language on the books to be able to protect, members of the public and folks on the board and staff, right, from, any kind of negative, hateful, discriminatory language. So we were hoping to put it on June 6th, June 20th.
Okay. So maybe, would you mind, Erin, just sharing your screen so we could maybe go through, but if you both want to, Sarah and Julie, start, and then I would love to just, if we can kind of go through and hear folks' feedback, but try to keep it maybe to 15 minutes here so we can move ahead. Do you want to go ahead, Sarah?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So I guess I was curious if we had any more insight into the definition of hate speech. I know when I spoke to Melissa before, there was still the laws in the books protect some hate speech and not others. And just curious if we're able to get any more clarity on that. I do appreciate the disruptive conduct. I'm looking at 4B. So I think that feels right to me, but there's still some subjective pieces in there that I am just not sure about.
Yeah. I think this is a good example of, I don't have something to respond to that now, but that's what we could bring forward for discussion and workshop, right?
Beautiful.
Could I just ask others to raise hands if you have a thought, just so we can kind of go through and make sure folks get a chance this go around to share feedback. And then we want to go ahead, Julie.
Yeah, I just a couple little things that I apologize for bumping in earlier, but it was, we had not limited comment to 30 minutes prior. So that was my question there. And then number 3, prior to board action dealing with policy or the expenditure of the funds, it says of, and I just, mine says of, or mine says of, so I have an older version. I printed it this morning, so it must have gotten fixed. And then, but on that action, is that mean voting only on an item? I mean, essentially, is that the only way we take action? So just the clarity on that piece.
I mean, I would say that's the stuff that falls in new business almost. I don't think it's specifically when it's voting. I think if something's up for a first read, that's where I think the language of to the limits to the item being considered, so, and even the action of taking a first read, I think is defined as an action. So I don't think it's specifically only when voting happens. But.
Okay. And the other one was just a small thing, but a question on 4C, and any discussion whether positive or negative of job performance or conduct of a student employee. And I'm just trying to think, when we have people who come up and say wonderful things about people, if they're going to be honored, or they're going to be promoted or recognized, or they want, during budget time, we had comments on people who were volunteer coordinators. I presume we would have to say, you would say that without naming them. So that's my question on the positive half of that. So it's just, I think that's something that we have to kind of think about a little bit. And that was it. I mean, it seemed, the rest of it seemed fine to me. Thanks.
Good points, really. So I just had a couple thoughts. Aaron, do you mind just going to the top? I don't think I put the number and letter for my first. Okay. So yeah, the number one, I just had a question, or just wondered what folks thought about. So I have to just move everybody so I can read this for a second. So the language in number one about limiting to a maximum of 3 minutes, and I know there's the or, I assume that was if we were going to put max of 30 minutes, but I guess I don't feel pulled to do 30 minutes, but I was just curious about the next piece of the time limits may be modified at a particular meeting. I'm just wondering about our current practice, which is usually, if requested, adding that 30 seconds. I mean, would that, like that language of saying at the discretion of the chair or something? I mean, I feel like that's kind of common practice. I don't know if that's important for us to be clear about that there, but I feel like there are often times that people request and it feels reasonable to allow that extra time. So just wondered if that, could be spelled out in a sentence. So when other people chime in, love to hear other people's thoughts on that, but I thought that was a reasonable addition. And then, let's see. I think the part, okay, 4B, if we could scroll down, I was kind of struggling with the yelling part, which seems like, of course, we don't want people yelling, but it just feels to me like that could be pretty subjective. And so I don't have an answer to that, but I guess I was just wondering if that rubbed anybody out. Like just, people can have their, raised voice and be impassioned. And I just would want to be careful, and it's a subjective thing. So I don't know how we really characterize, but I feel like the other language gets a little bit more to abusive, talking over. So I guess that part just stuck with me a little bit, that I feel like in certain contexts, somebody could be considered yelling where another person wouldn't see that. So I think that just that one word, I felt like the rest of it really, to me, captured what we want, or what we don't want in people sharing. So I think that was the only, and maybe the last piece was just G about the law enforcement, that I just, I get that may be a possibility, but I'm just sitting with that a little bit of like, does that need to be in there? I don't know. I get that may be a possibility, but I'm just wondering how that rubs other people. So those are my thoughts. So I don't know if you were next, Sarah. I think so, but would it be okay if we just went to Mickey, just because I haven't heard from Mickey yet? And then, okay. Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I just want to emphasize what I just mentioned. So I think the thing I really got a little confused is on the B for the paragraph the 4 and the 4B. I mean, all the languages and everything about threatening, I think is that everything's gonna be the judgment of the board or of the chair. I mean, the way the chair will judge, then this is not appropriate as a language. And I think this is a little broader language here. Then I feel like it's not really specify what we're meaning about those kind of different threatening, obscene languages, yelling. Is all little kind of confusing to me. It just depends the way we are perceiving. I mean, the chair can see that one differently than other board members. So it just depends of the judgment of the chair. So if we can add a little simple what we mean about what kind of languages, then we can all think about it and what kind of actions then here, then we feel like, okay, that's going to be inappropriate, so the chair can have that large picture to try to make some decision here. And the G, like I just mentioned about the law enforcement, I think we have now in person and on Zoom. So that means what kind of reaction the chair we have on Zoom and in person. So we don't have any law enforcement in the scene. So what can we do? So I mean, those kind of different options that need to be really aligning what we're with the concept. So in that specific situation, what the chair has to do. We don't have any law enforcement on the site. So what need to be done in that time? On Zoom and in person, I think more details here we need to make sure that we have a clear understanding about any action then, the chair has to take in that specific moment. So those are my 2 comments. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. I'm just curious about the why behind 4A, because I do think the board has such few times to talk with the public as a body. Like, I don't know why the remarks should be addressed to just the board chair. So I'm curious about the why behind that. And then, kind of in current language that we use around public comment, we say, please refrain from responding in the audience, and that the board is not going to be able to respond to your comments. And I'm just curious, that doesn't seem to be in this, or maybe I missed it, but that piece, I think I sit on the fence about that, like about whether or not we should be responding and how that works, but I would like guidance around that.
Okay. Yeah.
Any questions about that, Aaron? Nyla's up next, but
no. Yep. Sorry, I thought I didn't see Nyla's hand. Go ahead, Nyla.
I had the same kind of remarks as Sarah with B, with the line B. I feel like there's a lot of different things that don't really sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts. I feel like there's a lot in here that is kind of like policing things that wouldn't be just like behavior or just hate speech. There was, I don't know if that makes sense. I think like along the lines of like, could we just I think I need to collect my thoughts. Just give me a couple minutes.
I think Nyla and Aaron and Malia, maybe just if we have more feedback about that specific, it sounds like, there's some feedback about that specific section. I think it's fine for Nyla, any of us to give some more specific language recommendations about that, because it sounds like we have some concerns about some pieces of that.
Yeah, I think, just recognizing our time, I think there's a bunch of good feedback.
Yeah.
I think some of these questions kind of that were named are things I can get clarity for and can be part of kind of what we come back for discussion around in workshop. Yes, welcome any additional reflections or suggestions of language, particularly, that B section. So I think based on the comments here, and I'll consult with Melissa, I'll take a stab at some revisions, right? That can just be a next iteration for our consideration. Ideally when we're at first read, just to continue to kind of develop this, just so that we can kind of move this through and have, updated language in place as we resume board meetings in August. So yeah, welcome any additional feedback anybody wants to send this way to inform potential revisions on any of these pieces.
Okay, so does that sound reasonable, Nyla, for just kind of follow up?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and for all of us too. One other quick thing, Aaron, I think we can wrap up, is just I also just wondered about the language around just some of our feedback about some of that. Those terms might be subjective of who's determining that. I wonder if adding some language about to be determined by, but I don't even know if by just the chair, because it could be, some of us could perceive, but maybe just considering, is there a way for us to say, that it would be, determined as listening, whether, I'd have to think about language some more, but I think it seems like that's come up too, like who's determining that, who's determining some of those behaviors are, have hit the, have crossed the line, I guess. Yeah. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. And yeah, I think if you didn't get to speak now, if you wanted to share feedback by email, that would be great too. All right. So Aaron's gonna drop off.
I will transition us. Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Enjoy the tunes.
Enjoy the show.
Hope everybody does well. And yeah, I'll keep us rolling because we have 3 more topics and a hard stop. So just a huge thanks to Meg for being here, representing the librarians. We attached in board docs the slides that we shared last year, right, Meg? Was it last year?
I think it was 2020, honest. I think it was a while.
Are you serious?
I have no.
Malia, when you said last year, I was like, I don't remember this.
Wow. Okay. Well, it feels recent.
Okay, recent.
I mean, time, what is time? But in any case, it feels recent-ish that Meg and her colleagues essentially elevated this policy and thought we needed to do some significant revision to ensure that it was aligned with our core values as a district and in support of our equity work. And there was also sort of context nationally that was happening that made it feel like this is worth our while to make sure that our policy articulates what we wanted to say about students' access to books. So they did a bunch of work. We had a lot of back and forth. We did a full presentation. We made a bunch of meaningful changes. And then Meg came forward again just recently this year to say there's some additional components that are not reflected in the language at this point that she and her colleagues wanted to bring forward. So I said, great, let's just attach the past slides and just have you focus primarily on the new language and what the team is proposing we change and or add. So what you have in board docs is, like I said, the past context that was looking at the policy holistically, and then the red line version that helps hone in on the specific adaptations that the librarian team is proposing we make for the policy now. So Meg, why don't you give a little bit more context on why you all came forward with this proposal and kind of step folks through just like what those key changes are, and then we'll take questions and see if folks have feedback.
Okay. So several years ago, we worked to, like Malia said, update the 3 pieces of policy that relate to libraries and library media centers. And this work was guided by several workshops some of us had gone to, and where we kind of compared and contrasted with other districts to see what they were doing. And also we attended a ALA session where the people from ALA, especially from the Intellectual Freedom Department, talked about how important key parts of the policy are. And one of the
say what ALA is, just whatever you acronyms. Yeah, thank you.
I was going to say
American Library Association, their intellectual freedom chair spoke to us about just how important those key parts of the policies can be. And one of the main things, and this was several years ago, but seeing the change in the landscape, one of the main things that they encouraged us to change was to have wording to say that only challenges can only will only be received from within the Portland community, so that outside entities couldn't challenge materials in our school district. So that was one of the main things we changed. And then there was other more subtle changes around diversity and equity in terms of our collection development policy. So we made those changes several years ago. And one of the things that we didn't do, and I cannot for the life of me remember why this wasn't done before this, was we didn't explicitly go through the steps of what happens when a formal challenge happens. And we've never had a formal challenge in Portland, but we've had several informal challenges. And informal challenges, basically someone comes, has a problem with a book, there's a conversation, and it gets resolved without going to a formal challenge. But when a formal challenge happens, it's up to the superintendent to spell out what the steps will be. Like, does he make the decision? Does the board make the decision? Who gets to decide? And so this proposal is just laying out those steps. And again, I wasn't clear because I don't know all the legalese. I wasn't clear as to whether this needed to be in a policy or it could exist somewhere outside of a policy. So again, I went back to several of my colleagues in other districts and then kind of sussed out best practices across other districts. I will say also that this is living in the selection of educational materials in IJJ, not in IJJR, which seems counterintuitive because IJJR is the one that deals with challenged materials. But again, this is what all the other districts do. So I don't really understand the reason it's here, other than I'm guessing there's some legalese as to why it sits here and not within that other policy, if that makes sense. So if you have looked, or if you want to review, it's the IJJ proposed changes, and they're all in red at the end. There's nothing being cut out. It's just this addition at the bottom. And you can read through and see that it's pretty straightforward. The superintendent selects a committee, the committee reviews the material, and then they give their report to the superintendent. So I'm here if people have questions.
Thank you, Meg. Sarah, go ahead.
Love this, Meg. Thank you so much for working on this. How does a complaint get made? Like, what qualifies as a complaint? Like, a parent comes in and says something. Does it have to be written? Is there a form? I think that might be helpful to add.
So if someone just comes in and complains, the first step is always to try to resolve it without a formal complaint. But if someone wants to formally challenge a piece of educational material, whether it's a classroom book or something in the library, there is a policy that includes the little form that they would fill out. And that can be seen in IJJR2. One of the other changes that we made in the previous go around was a box to make sure that they've read the entire material. So they would fill that out. They would hand it to, I'm thinking the superintendent's office. I can't quite remember. I don't have it pulled up. And then the superintendent would go through these steps.
That's if it gets escalated to that level. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, it never has.
And that's, sorry, thank you, Julie. I'll go to you in a second. I just wanted to clarify. You're saying, you had said that I think earlier, Meg, that there has not been any formal, as far as we know, historically in Portland schools.
Yeah, since as far as any of the librarians, that have been here the longest, which I think is probably 20 plus years.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we've had people who have had pushback on curriculum materials, questions. There's another policy around opting your child out of a particular part of the curriculum. So that has come up, but I think to Meg's point, she's speaking specifically about the this challenge process.
Okay, great. Julie, you can go ahead.
Well, I just was wondering where you would find that challenge form.
It's if you go to the policies, it's IJJ/R2.
Okay, and so it's in the policy and they can click on that and there's a link that will bring it up, or do they have to print it out, or?
Yeah, they could. I think there's some language that it's supposed to exist at central office, or building administrators should have it on hand. I don't know if that actually happens or not, but they can also just go to the policies and find it.
And is it in multiple languages, or is it that would be a question?
I don't know. Are our policies in multiple languages?
None of our policies are in all of our languages.
Okay.
But with the new website, is it translatable?
Oh,
I think the policies are PDF'd, so
right.
It doesn't pick it up the same way.
Thank you.
That answers your question. Okay. Nyla, go ahead.
I'm wondering, would the committee create the criteria to examine the books? Who creates the set of criteria to examine the books?
So the criteria is pretty broad. If you're looking at the new proposed changes under D, it says read and examine the materials, check general acceptance of material by reading reviews, weigh values and faults against each other, and form opinions based on the materials as a whole and not passages or portions pulled out of context. So the people who are on this committee are educators, a librarian, a community member, and the department head. So I think that, they'd already be mostly people who have a lot of experience in evaluating materials. But
Okay,
we don't have a rubric or anything.
Okay, so it would be based on their capacity as
Correct.
Like professionals. Okay. There was one. Sorry, I'm having a hard time really differentiating because there's like 2 or 3 different forms, but I will raise my hand again if it comes up.
Okay.
I just wanted to make a quick comment that's, folks may all have known this, but I just did a quick little reading. And tell me, Meg, if I'm right, that you were saying ALA, so it was the Maine Library Association, like the state of Maine's version of that same organization?
ALA is American Library Association,
Right.
but there's MLA, Maine Library Association.
So it's like the same, but just like the state level of that same organization.
Oh, I was talking about ALA earlier.
Right. But sorry, I didn't give the context. So I just was going to say that I had just looked up a little bit and thinking about tonight about kind of, challenges made throughout the state. And so I was just reading a recent article. Some of you might have seen that noted from the Maine Library Association that fewer than 1 books have been challenged per year in Maine for a long time, right? And that we know last year it was 12, and then January and February of this year, there have been 8 already. So I'm just so glad we're doing this because we clearly see the movement too. That it used to be like a parent would just be the one, and now we know organized groups, right, that are very funded and nationally organized. So I just think talking about this and seeing the changes happening everywhere that we're really digging into this. So I just wanted to just put that out there and appreciate this work because I think it's really important, even in our community where we know we have a lot of support, that it's happening here too. So I just wanted to appreciate that we're all taking it very seriously. So thank you.
do think just on that point, and Meg, you said that I'm catching that this new language, I'm trying to remember it now, it helps us make sure that this would have to be local, right? Is that what you said, Meg?
Oh, right.
Yes. Well, that's in the earlier revisions.
Oh, that was in earlier.
JR2.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that we made sure was that the formal complaint challenge can only come from inside the Portland community. Yeah.
Okay, so Portland even specifically, right? It couldn't be another Maine community member.
Right.
That's a great.
I think that's important just because there is more national attention on us. And I think where we do hear things that haven't gotten escalated to the level of a formal challenge, it tends primarily to be pertaining to LGBTQ folks and topics. So just to be clear, like we're trying to be very solid in our policy language to protect our students in our community. And that's at least what I've seen is the one place where there's stuff that's popped that hasn't gotten to that level of formal challenge, but that's signaled in that direction.
Okay. Nyla, was your hand raised for a new question?
Yes, but the other folks that haven't gone before me can go. I think Sarah hasn't gone.
Oh, Sarah Bride. Yeah. Okay, we can come back to you. I don't know if Julie or Sarah was first. Is it okay if Sarah goes, Julie? Okay. So go ahead, Sarah B, and then
thank you. I appreciate that. Because this is great because my question has to do with this last section of the conversation about only accepting challenges from folks within the Portland community. I'm curious how we would define that. If you work in Portland, do you have to live in Portland? Do you have,
I forget what the wording is, so I would have to go back and find that. If we want to go on to the next question, and I'll look through and try to find that policy and find the exact wording.
Thank you.
Okay.
While Meg's looking for that, I know we're about to go to Julie. I just want to remind us, our goal tonight was really to sort of focus on the specific revisions that have been proposed, not to sort of take up going back through the entire policy again, which we did in much detail before, which I realized was 2020, even though it felt like last year. So I think if the committee was saying they wanted to do another sort of bigger, deeper dive, I think that would be feedback from this meeting, but I don't think we should go into that tonight, just given our time. So just wanted to acknowledge that.
So Malia, if people have specific feedback about the revisions we're talking about now, we can do that, but otherwise.
Yeah, that's where we're focused for tonight. Yeah. But happy if people are like, whoa, there's tons of other stuff, even though y'all worked on it somewhat recently, we want to come back and do another bigger revision.
Okay.
That would send us in a different direction, which would, but I don't think we're prepared for that level of tuning of the policy tonight.
All right. So Julie and Nyla, if you have something specific regarding those revisions or the feedback that we do need to do further work, but I do think we should wrap up so we can get to the high school piece. Julie, do you want to
that's exactly what I wanted to comment on is I've had some input, and I was wondering at some point to talk about the inspection materials, the opt-out requests, and if that is in multiple languages, because since 2020, we have even more individuals of various faiths that might find some things going on. So I would love to have a conversation about that in the future. That's it. Okay,
thanks. Nyla?
Yeah, I would like a deeper dive because it's kind of really hard for me to understand the slideshows versus the two documents that are posted. And like they're relationship, if that makes sense, or if the slideshow is just the two documents like simplified.
So that slideshow is from our original, presentation when we did our original edits. So that just gives you some background of where we were. Those edits have already happened. So the only one we're looking at now is IJJ proposed changes. That's what we're proposing right now.
Okay, so if I have issues on some of the things that are on here, is this not the space for that?
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that we've already, that's what I was trying to say in the beginning, is that we were thinking this was just going to be a pretty small addition to this policy work, because we had done deeper work on it previously. To Meg's point, that's why we wanted you to have that background context. But if the committee is saying they're interested in taking up a broader revision to the set of policies, then we're open to hearing that and talking more about that. But that would be not what we're prepared for tonight. We were just thinking this is like a small another addition, because we had made all those changes a few years ago. But Nylat, if you're saying I see bigger issues with this set of policies and want the committee to put this on our list for further revisions, we could take that as feedback, and then we'd have to schedule that. We probably wouldn't get it voted before the end of this school year, though, would be my sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I obviously recognize the time, but I definitely do, because there are some things that I would like to dive into in this slide or in the presentation. But yeah, thanks.
I mean, one idea on that, Nylat, could be, if you were interested, we could have a follow-up conversation to kind of understand where your questions and ideas are. And Meg, if you'd be open to that with me, and then we could figure out if that leaves you coming out of that, Nylat, saying, yes, I would like the committee to sort of open the policy back up holistically and do work on it, or if that kind of answers questions you have. But, if that's something that would be useful, I'd be happy to do that. And it sounds like Meg would be open for that as well.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's mostly just, my concerns are just like, I think I will follow up on that and see if that might satisfy some of my concerns. Okay. I'll reach out.
Okay, that sounds great.
Thanks, Alex. I want to let Chairlon speak, but I was going to ask actually the chair, were you hoping, I had hoped that we could get this nailed down soon. So was that your hope with this policy? By this end of the school year? That was where I was.
So we have 2 board meetings left in this school year. And so thinking about what has to move out of this committee today to make sure that on the 6th or the 20th that we can get those onto the board agenda. So even just going back to that first policy we were looking at, I wasn't sure if it's coming back to committee next month. In that case, we won't be able to pick it up until August at the board level.
Yeah, and for this one, again, if we just focus on the section that Meg, is highlighting in red, we were hoping we could get votes on that in order to move that one forward, thinking it was like a smaller focused revision, even though with everything we just talked about, and definitely will look forward to the follow-up with Nylat.
So I do think that this set of issues could be a good educational piece for the board to look at, this cluster of policies to just have a conversation about. I don't know if this is procedurally okay, but this is what I'm thinking. So push back if it's not procedurally okay, but to do a board focus on these policies, just because I do think we're getting more and more questions from the community about the protections that we have set up around these things. So I would be interested to do that maybe in August as we move into the next school year.
Yeah, we could do that. And I think we did that earlier. But to your point, Sarah, there's stuff coming up. There's a lot of new board members. So I'm sure Megan, a couple others would be open to that. Meg, tell me if I'm, my sense is you would be. Yeah.
Was it done since 2020?
Probably not, because we did all this sort of review.
Yeah, I feel like the world has changed so much since then that even that doesn't feel recent anymore. So I think thinking about bringing those in front of the board again makes sense.
So
Yeah.
if we were to do that, then we would not be needing to, and I know we're running out of time, but like make a decision on moving forward that one piece, or do you want to pull that up? And you think we should do that?
I think you could move this piece forward, but then look collectively at the body of policies around these things.
Malia, could someone share the screen of that one piece, just especially like as Nyla pointed out, just clear what are we, actually looking at for right now with the piece you're saying we could move forward, which is okay.
Yeah. So just there's a set of policies, and this is the one on selection of educational materials that Meg had said is where districts place this component. So it's down here at the end, and there's nothing taken out. It's just added in. Mm-hmm. And again, all that's added in is some more specificity around the process here around the challenge materials. And then what's this last piece again, Meg?
This last piece, I realized is a big mistake in it because the IJJR2, ours is called, that's not what ours is called. I don't know why that's there. But this is just a language that speaks to who does the selections in our district, because most of the policies out there have language that says approval of any kind of educational materials across the district lies ultimately with the superintendent. And I think we all know in practice that there's no way the superintendent, like I don't even know every single book that's in my library. It's just impossible. So there's some language in here that speaks to like the people who actually are doing the selection. And I think a lot of districts find that important because there's so much proposed legislation around who gets to select materials and, what their credentialing is to be selecting materials. And so I think that is one of the reasons why this, and I do like that it talks to it speaks to the educational expertise of the professional staff.
So how do folks feel about voting on this? So what this would do would then bring this as to a first read for our next board meeting, correct? Go ahead, Julie.
I was suggest whatever the appropriate motion to move to have this brought to the board with focus on the new section. I don't think there's any, it seems very clear for me. For board comment, with the idea that the whole document will be looked at again in August, but that in there somewhere. Okay, is that appropriate at this point? Ora?
I think so.
I guess, sorry, I know you're in the middle of a motion. I know it's a little less formal.
Is it clear? Is the motion clear?
Yeah, but can I just say one thing to pop in here? I'm just feeling like, and Meg, let me know if it's a problem for you all, but I guess if this committee, if the sort of idea is that you all want to revisit the policy in general, I think, Sarah, I agree things have changed, but also the things that are hot right now are the reasons why we took this policy up before in terms of the context. So it's because of what was happening nationally and the pushback and the concerns that we did the work in 2020. So it feels like the same rationale, maybe just like a different, like even, I don't know, stronger national context. But I don't know. I guess if people want a full kind of dive into all these policies and want the opportunity to fully revise them, then I would say, maybe we don't do this piece, and because it's just going to be hard to talk about I thought folks would be, I didn't realize there was going to be that much interest in going through the full suite of policies. And again, it's because I'm coming from this context of having done like multiple meetings and conversations and kind of doing this work collaboratively with educators. But if you all do feel like these are policies you want to prioritize, and open them back up completely and holistically, then I feel like we may as well just punt this for when we can do that, because otherwise we're going to bring forward this one piece and people will have the same kind of questions and it will be hard to frame it up without doing the full overview. And so if that's where the energy of the committee is, then we will hear that and we can regroup. But I just feel like if that's the plan, is to open them up and go through the whole revision again, then we may as well not sort of do this one piece now, because I think it will just confuse people.
I understand what you're saying, Malia, but I think that in order to give the procedural piece in this, come July, August, someone comes and starts to question, and there isn't, this, I like the procedure, and that's the part why I think that needs to move forward. And we may in August be moved. I could take the August part out if you want, but that the idea that, a holistic view later is important, but I think it's a real procedural change. Am I correct on that, Megan? I don't know. What do you want to do, Megan? Because it's your bailiwick.
So if we want to open it up and look at all three policies again, then this does not have to live this does not have to live here right now for it to be implemented, because the wording right now is something around the superintendent will come up with a plan, basically. I forget what the exact wording is. So that kind of wording already exists. And so Malia and Aaron could just have this as their plan, So it doesn't necessarily have to, I think it gives it more power to have it written out there, but it doesn't have to be right now. Like, if someone were to come forward with a challenge tomorrow, Malia and Aaron could use this as their guidelines.
That's why I'm saying, like, we will. And that's why I think it's smart and wise to get it into the policy, because whoever is there in the future. But if people are genuinely wanting to go back into all the policies for further revision, then I think it just makes sense to do it all together and we can operate as we have been.
Can I get Mickey's comment or question? And then I'd love to just maybe straw poll it for, members of the committee to just say, like, where is everybody at as far as like what Malia's speaking to about wanting to do a deeper dive. So go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah. I'm leaning to do more deeper dive on that. And I feel like we already have the guidelines, and I think summer is around the corner. So I feel like more comfortable to move to the fully diving in August with more understanding and, making to the broader concept of what we really want to see, because I look at the national momentum happening now, but I think if we have a great concept and understanding and the language aligning to what we really defining from the full board to understand the deep on that, I think taking a little more time and fully diving on that in August, this is what I'm in favor with. Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to say quickly, I do think three of us on this committee, weren't on the board for, some of those pieces of the work. So I do think that part, would, we could benefit from getting deeper into the work. But I'd love to just hear anybody who hasn't shared. It sounds like Mickey, and I don't think Nyla, you spoke to specific. You did speak to it. So if anyone wants to say, just do you feel like putting this off now is important? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly want to just really do some deep dive on some of the things that are written, because I think there are some things that we need to specify and not really have this the views, the fact that certain things are partisan, which is obviously that's the law, but it's also there. I want to know what happens if somebody is trying to report like a book that is harmful. So maybe not the other way, but the other way around. And so that's more of what I want to deep dive or like get into a deep dive about. And I really want to see if we can actually create criteria for the groups of folks that would, or the committee that would be doing this work, because I think that is important to like at least do some workshop around the specific criteria, not necessarily just like them using their own awareness. But yeah, that's just where I'm at.
Okay, thanks. I guess maybe I'll just throw out one quick thing, and I do want to make sure we respect Pamela's time and get to our last item. My one question was just logistically with thinking about, we don't meet in July, and, does it seem reasonable to really have, some focus in August to then, 2 more items, right? To, have something that we can move forward into, the beginning of the year. I guess that would be my hope. But it seems to me the members of I don't think we have, good consensus to move this forward. So I feel like, okay, kind of saying for right now, it looks like we're going to put this off and maybe make it a priority for August meetings. That would be my preference.
Okay. Meg, sorry we didn't get this through tonight, but I appreciate your leadership. And so I as I chatted you, I'll give you a call and follow up on the next steps. And I think if the committee is interested in deep diving, like Nyla, the comment you made, I recall that was part of the dialogue that we had at the time. So perhaps a good pre-work step would be for us to find the meetings that happened when we made the original revisions. And I think having you all watch those as preparation could be helpful, just because I think, for staff like Meg and folks, we've kind of done that work, and lots of these things that are being surfaced were teased out with the group at the time. And not to say that you all won't find other.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you might be like, oh, there's another thing. But I remember Adam was the person at the time bringing up exactly the point you were bringing up, Nyla. So that could be a good next step. And then from there, you all could, we could figure out if you want to do deeper stuff or if you're actually like, okay, no, I get it more. And, these refinements feel sufficient. So I will take ownership of getting the committee the link to that meeting. And then Meg, I'll follow up with you just around the next steps for that as well. But I appreciate Meg.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. I appreciate it was a lot of work. And
thanks, Meg.
Expertise.
Thank you all. I'm heading out to a Sea Dogs game now.
Good night.
Bye.
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 Okay, so I'm going to tell Carlos he doesn't even have to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just spaced that item, Malia. I totally knew that was there, but
no worry. I think this is we can be very fast. So I'm going to tell him not even to worry about popping on. So there he is.
Yeah,
we're texting and yeah. So I guess I did this. Let me do this as a commercial, not as a discussion. My commercial is that I'm looking for board interest in sponsoring a resolution around ESOL certification. Carlos, hey, we're way behind on time. Sorry, I texted you right after I texted you that you didn't have to come. So I'm telling folks rather than discussion, I'm just making a commercial pitch right now. And then we can follow up. So thanks for being here to hear the pitch though. But basically we, for years have been talking about how everybody is a teacher of language, and that we are trying hard to shift the mindset so that the orientation isn't, it's the ESOL teacher's job to figure out how to differentiate and support language acquisition, not my job. Or we need to keep adding ESOL teachers if we have more students who are multilingual. But that rather we're at the point in our system where really we're all language teachers and really need to all have that expertise and knowledge around the language principles and how to apply those across the curriculum. And so there's been efforts for many years to promote having more people get their credential or their certification, but really it's been kind of an opt-in sort of thing. And so we've had, a handful of people that have done that. We have a good list of folks who have done it, but it's certainly not a systems-wide approach. Many other states and districts have a requirement that all teachers are certified or credentialed in some way. All of Massachusetts, other districts that we've been looking at who have the same or less than actually fewer multilingual students in their systems. So we really want to move this forward. We've talked about this with you all as a board. Thank you very much for helping us preserve $250,000 in ESSERF to really launch this in a much more significant way. Jane Armstrong, Assistant Director, has started to draft out sort of a pathways approach where there's some micro credentials and full certification. Our dream is that ultimately to work in the public schools, both it's an expectation that you come certified or get certified within, let's say, 2 years, and that it's a value proposition, that people are excited to come here because they know that they'll get this certification or credential if they work in our schools. We've talked with the union about the contract. I think we can do this, but does require that we would pay for teachers to get the, whatever it would cost for the credential or certification. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. So the resolution, we just thought that would be a good way to kind of pave the way for this work. And because it's been like lots of people have had this desire and intent, but it's never like really gotten systematized. We thought this was something that would really establish that assertion and expectation, like give us that charge the way, for example, you did with the pre-K work. And that could be helpful as something we pass off to the next superintendent as an expectation. So I personally have a passion about trying to move this in order to establish that kind of set the table for that ongoing. And so basically, I'm just looking for a couple board members who are interested. Mickey and I had connected, and I think Mickey, I don't know if you can speak, but was potentially interested in, but co-writing and sponsoring it. So not alone, I get that, but just wondering, yeah. Julie, okay.
Looks like we have a few volunteers. So go ahead, Emily.
Yeah, I'm happy to take the lead. I'm happy to work with whomever, in a supporting role, whatever makes the most sense.
Thank you.
All right. So is it okay to circle back, Malia, with board member interest? And
yeah. And Mickey, I think that would be helpful to hear from you too. Would it be helpful to have support or folks taking the lead? We could figure that out offline as well.
Yeah, so like I talked to you is that, I want the co-sponsor because I really value the certification for years. And I think all the teachers really have the ability to have, the language certification to really moving our students, to learn different in the confusing languages from the start. And I think it will be really wide open because when we look at it, mostly we just need to have a specific teacher with that credential to be able to support our language learners. So I think in the classroom, if we have a plus from the mainstream teacher, it's going to be a plus to support the students to move forward academically and to be able to connect with the mainstream strategy learning so quicker than expected. So, and I've been something that I really want to put my hands on that to make sure then we can move that resolution forward. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, then I will thank you very much for the support. I will follow up with Mickey and Julie and Emily offline. Carlos, I'll loop you into that. I'll give you all a little bit of additional context. I don't know. I know there's probably varied experience with writing resolutions, but I know there's experience in the three of you. So you can kind of, our intent, and then we'll give you some information, but then I know resolutions stay pretty high level. So you'll let us know what you need. But if there's any way we can get this onto the agenda, the last agenda of the board, the 16th, that's our goal. It might be a stretch goal, but that would be really exciting if we could accomplish that. Okay, great.
Thank you, Carlos, for coming, even though
Thanks, Carlos.
short.
See you all.
Thanks. And thank
you.
you for sticking it out with us, Pamela. I'm sorry that we went so late.
Sorry.
I don't know if we can stay a few minutes later. We do have our superintendent search committee after this, so we do have that constraint, but I don't know.
How late is it going till 7 or 7:30?
What's that?
7. Okay.
7. Or maybe a couple of us, Sarah, Lentz, if you feel okay about, a couple of us hanging on a few minutes, I think that would be all right. No. Okay. Just kidding. Go ahead, Pamela. Let's get what we can moving. I appreciate it.
It's good stuff.
It is good stuff. I know.
I should go.
Want me to share the screen, Pamela?
Yeah, if you can share, Malia, that would be great.
Yep.
I'll try to, I guess
I'll go fast.
I'll talk quickly, or I'll be brief and, rest here.
Okay. And we have more time. We'll fill up with the whole board. So,
Okay.
okay. You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, thanks guys. So just wanted to give you an update in terms of where we've gotten with the whole high school redesign work and the resolution that really led this work. Just in this slide, I just wanted to quickly point out some things that were highlighted as charges that came from that resolution. So first, like limit disparity in enrollment, we did that by eliminating choice and putting in school preference, and just to balance enrollment across the schools. And then the second thing was creating a system-wide vision with a common theory of action for all schools. And in the following slides, you'll sort of see how we did that by, like putting together a high school design team to do that work. And then the other thing noted was to just try to create greater consistency and alignment across the 3 schools in terms of programming and offerings that they provide. And so we did that by putting in some activating working groups. And the 2 that actually have been functioning this year are the grade 9 and the English language development work group. And I'll talk more about that too. The other piece sort of like that was touched on with that resolution was thinking about the facilities need, right? Creating this like state-of-the-art facility for our schools, and in that taking into account the need to maybe consolidate and incorporate Portland High School, Deering, paths and adult ed as well. So just this was the intent of this is sort of to go through how we've touched on all of these. Sorry, normally I'd be talking a little slower, but I'm trying to I'm being mindful of the time here. So with a system-wide vision and creating that common theory of action for all the schools, like I said, we put together the high school design team. And if you recall that image there that I have on that slide is just to sort of give a visual for how we're functioning here is that we have the principals that meet monthly. And we touch base in terms of how the work is going. And they were the ones who were helpful in sort of deciding which work groups we're going to activate for this year. And so we had those 3 work groups that were meeting and they're sort of functioning. So we have the high school design team, and then underneath them are these work groups. Schedule, grade 9, and English language development were the 3 that we decided to go with. And we actually set schedule aside because realizing that work is going to be, we're going to need to do that work after we've sort of designed and figured out what it is that we're building for, and then incorporate schedule there. And we can talk briefly too in terms of how Deering's doing with that work. Okay.
Is that okay?
I hate having to talk fast and like trying to go through these slides quickly.
Can I just stop here? Aura, please, Chair. And I think we have only 7 minutes left. This is so important reporting. And I think we really need to have a time to dive on that and having a more clear, because we passed a resolution and the way we're going that fast, I just don't get it. How we can come out and understand and asking more questions. There's a lot of questions to be asked, so we're never going to have a time. So can we reconsider that one to move that one to another time, please?
Can I say something quick and then just to offer is we were going to come back to the full board. And so I think we wanted to sort of preview some of this and sort of see where the dialogue went to help shape that further, but we can just do this at the full board meeting, and not run it through committee for a deeper dive. That would be, one way to accomplish what you're saying, Mickey.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Thank you, Minya.
Julie, can you be quick so I can?
Yeah, and
I just want to
on
let
June
Camilla
27th,
finish.
Camilla, you have a meeting and a retreat, which you sent off to everybody. Is that indeed open to board members to listen?
Yes,
not?
yep, absolutely,
Okay.
yes. The retreat would
That
be
just
great.
seems to be a really good place to really understand it.
Yes, and my plan for the retreat is to actually really create a clearer picture of where we started and the roadmap we've taken in terms of where we are right now and what we're going to do next year too. So, because we're going to have people attending who have not been to all the design team meetings. And even for those that have been attending, it's always great to remind ourselves of where we've come along the way.
That's good. Be there.
Well, I absolutely hear what Mickey's saying and want to have more opportunity, but I think if we can just really overview, Pamela, just for us to have some of those basics so that the next opportunity we can go deeper. So absolutely, Mickey, don't want this to feel rushed that we're not. But I think I want to at least, let you get through what you can, but just, we're going to have more opportunity. Do you feel like, Malia, so you think not having to come back to committee, but just next time be in front of the whole board? I mean, I feel all right about that. I don't know if others feel
I can touch base quickly, for the 5 minutes at least, and then you just understand that we'll do a deeper dive with the board.
Yeah, but just know you don't have to hurry. Just go through what we can. Okay, with us.
Maybe the things that I think are important to note.
Yeah, thank you.
Pamela, just tell me which slides to pop to.
Yeah.
Let you know when you're at time, because I know they have a hard stop.
So if we next slide.
Sorry. There, no one. Okay,
well, so I'll just speak to this. So one of the things we've really done with the high school design team is we started off looking at our current data, district data, qualitative and quantitative as well, just to ground ourselves in where we are currently so that we have a common understanding amongst ourselves. And then really went into, okay, well, so let's create this vision. What are we going to do? And, decided that the way to do this is to create that portrait of a graduate that would serve as our vision. And it would be really important to get as many voices to the table as possible. So get as much feedback from the community and stakeholders as possible. So really held focus groups with students from all 3 high schools, and then also surveyed all the students. So we had 416 responses from students. We held focus groups with staff from all 3 high schools as well. And then we had also focus groups with employers, our community partners, such as Boys and Girls Club, and then held a focus group event for parents as well. Julie was there, and we had a nice turnout. It would have been nice to have more folks. So that's where I'm trying to think, do we hold another one, or do we sort of hold off and wait until the fall and hold another one there for people to review the draft that we have so far? But we had about 20 Spanish speaking parents show up, which was phenomenal. And they gave some great feedback there. So I was thrilled about that. And we're continuing to collect feedback as well and refine sort of the draft that we have right now.
That might be a good pause point, Pamela, because we only have a minute left. Is there any other kind of final wrap up thing to flag for the group?
The other thing was this one here. So the draft, the way that we've come about that is we looked at all the work we've done in the past few years. So not ignoring, all the great work we've done with the instructional vision or the equity policy, but to sort of looked at everything we've done the past few years where we had lots of stakeholder feedback and engagement as well, and looked at what were the themes that arose from that the community was telling us, and sort of integrated and folded in that work with the focus groups and surveys that we're holding now for that portrait of a grad. So the draft really takes into account all this work as well as the work from this year.
Yeah. Well, that's a good teaser, Pamela. So everyone will be really excited to hear the rest of
Deep
it.
gratitude, Pamela, for all that work and the focus groups and all the input. And I'm really sorry that we overbooked this meeting. It does not reflect our our acknowledgement of the importance of this work. And I think maybe I'll just flag for everybody. I mean, I know I looked it over, but not like in depth. So I would just ask everybody to do that, on your time before the board meeting, so we feel as prepared as possible to do that deeper dive. So I thank you for being here. And again, sorry we didn't get to have as much time as we all would have liked to. If not for the superintendent search meeting, we I think would have had more flexibility. So I apologize for that.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Camilla, for pulling this synthesis together, but just such great leadership and facilitation of, a process that we've been trying to kind of get started and rolling for multiple years. And it finally feels like it's the engine's turning and we're on a path. And we did just recently get great news also from the state about the legislation where we're going to have an opportunity to apply. So we can speak about that when we follow up as well. But we're feeling like things are potentially coming together on the high school work in a really positive way. So, and just Pamela's leadership has been awesome. So
very big deal.
Thanks to her.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
All right.
It's been a great team to work with for sure.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. So I just wanted to quickly flag that the next committee meeting, is it the 16th or the 20th? I just screwed it up in my brain, but I just wanted to say that it's possible that we may try to reschedule it earlier so that we can get to some things before our last meeting in June. So, sorry, let me just see. When is our next? I had it down and now it's gone. So unless somebody else has it in mind, let's just say it's maybe to be rescheduled. So let's wrap up at 7:01. Can I just get a show of hands? Motion to adjourn. June 27th. Thank you. So that was the issue. It's after our last board. So we'll just circle back to see if we can possibly get it before, so we can try to get some of these things through to the full board before then. So thank you everyone so much for full meeting.
Thank you.
See you on the superintendent search. Some of you have a great night, everybody.
Have a good night.